Welcome to episode 22 of the Gospel Works podcast, where we discuss how the gospel applies to work and life. We're your hosts. I'm Aaron Giesler from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this is my friend, bibliophile and nerd, Josh M.
Full time.
Dude.
I take no vacations from nerddom.
Dude, and here's why I say that today. We're giving a good old-fashioned book report.
Yes. Book report.
No, this is something we're doing different.
Yeah.
And we hope it resonates, because here's something I'm finding out, Josh. Other people have good ideas besides you and me.
What?
I know.
I know, which is amazing.
I know. And there's this little guy. Well, he passed away, sadly, but he had some pretty okay ideas.
Pretty solid. Today we're going to be looking at a book that was written by Tim Keller called Every Good Endeavor. And there's been several times on this podcast where we have talked about the lack of resources for folks who want to live out their faith in the work environment. And that is true in a lot of ways. But it's not true in the most fundamental way, like in the general or abstract sense. What's missing is, this is what you need to do as a plumber. And this is how you need to conduct yourself as a lawyer. This is how we should think Christianly about being a computer programmer or a carpenter. There are a few good books about faith and work and how they go together. And there have been two that have really impacted me.
So this is very different from books on faith and works. There are a lot of those.
There's so many of those.
This is not faith and works.
The Lordship Salvation debate.
Oh man, dude, MacArthur and Ryrie made so much money doing that.
Money.
But this is faith and work.
Right.
What your job is.
Your profession.
Your
whether that's paid or unpaid, as we've said before. There's a handful of books that I've really enjoyed, and two that have been super formative. One was by a guy named Doug Sherman back in the 80s called Your Work Matters to God. And the other one is this one, Every Good Endeavor, by Tim Keller, that was written, I think, in maybe 2016, maybe 2013. I don't exactly remember.
Amazon will probably tell you, or Google.
Yeah, one of those two. Let's start off by a kind of a lengthy quote from the introduction to Tim Keller's book, when he's writing about why he, as the pastor of a large church in New York City, decided to write a book on work. He wrote this: Robert Bella's landmark book, Habits of the Heart, helped many people name the thing that was and still is eating away at the cohesiveness of our culture: expressive individualism. Elsewhere, Bella argued that Americans had created a culture that elevated individual choice and expression to such a level that there was no longer any shared life, no commanding truths or values that tied us together. As Bella wrote, we are moving to an ever greater validation of the sacredness of the individual person. But our capacity to imagine a social fabric that would hold individuals together is vanishing. The sacredness of the individual is not balanced by any sense of the whole or concern for the common good. But near the end of his book Habits, the author proposes one measure that would go a long way towards reweaving the unraveling culture. To make a real difference, there would have to be a reappropriation of the idea of vocation or calling, a return in a new way to the idea of work as a contribution to the good of all and not merely as a means to one's own advancement. That is a remarkable statement. If Bella is right, one of the hopes for our unraveling society is the recovery of the idea that all human work is not merely a job, but a calling. The Latin word vocare, to call, is at the root of our common word vocation. Today, the word often means simply a job, but that was not the original sense. A job is a vocation only if someone else calls you to do it, and you do it for them rather than for yourself. And so our work can be a calling only if it is reimagined as a mission of service to something beyond merely our own interests. As we shall see, thinking of work mainly as a means of self-fulfillment and self-realization slowly crushes a person, and as Bella and many others have pointed out, undermines society itself. But if we are to reappropriate an older idea, we must look at that idea's origin. In this case, the source of the idea of work as a vocation is the Christian scriptures. And so, taking our cue from Bella's challenge, in this book we will do what we can to help illuminate the transformative and revolutionary connection between Christian faith and the workplace. We'll be referring to this connection and all the ideas and practices surrounding it as the integration of faith and work.
I think Bella's idea is still pretty much going strong.
Yeah.
I mean, his identification of it is still right on.
Right. And Robert Bella he's not writing a theological book. He's more of a sociologist. But Keller is, I think correctly, like he's sitting with all these people in New York trying to reach out to the unreached, which was what he was really well known for, connecting the dots with folks who don't yet believe in Jesus. And in that journey, he saw that work and vocation were a piece that used to hold people together somehow. And that has stopped doing that because work for us has become a self-centered thing. Now, work has always been about providing for your family and making sure you survive, and it's a necessity and all the things. But it has only very recently been so impersonal.
Yeah.
Like, the company doesn't exist until the 19th century. The idea that I could work for a conglomerate instead of for a person, that's new. And it's kind of in line with what our culture is doing overall.
Well, and that everything is just so, for anything that even keeps me a little bit down from expressing my own individuality, I hate this job because I couldn't wear flip-flops, or I could,
Right.
We see it even socially, the rise of cutting off your family because of political views or theological views, or
Right.
I mean, that would be theological views, maybe a little more in line with history.
Sure. Right.
If you change your faith.
Yeah.
But I'm not even really talking about that. I'm talking about like, you change denominations, you go to a different church, whatever.
Yeah.
But the political stuff you cut off, like you just tell your family you're not welcome here at all.
There's very little willingness to overcome friction in relationships.
Yeah, because it's all about the frictionless expression of my own individualism.
Right. I don't go to the movies. I watch on Netflix.
Yeah.
I don't cash out with a teller. I scan myself. I want as little interaction with other human beings who may challenge me or make
cramp
me uncomfortable
my style.
or cramp my style, whatever it is. Yeah. And what Bella is imagining for us and what Keller is kind of picking up on is, what if we imagine work in an inverted way?
Which really is only a mindset shift.
Yeah.
He's not even saying go get different jobs. He's not saying like do different work.
Right.
He's saying think about your work not just for you.
Right.
Which
shouldn't be that big of a stretch.
Listen, don't do anything different except think a little differently. But sometimes in today's age, thinking differently maybe is the biggest stretch.
Yeah. Well, it's always been a big stretch. It's always been important. I mean, if we go all the way back to the New Testament,
Yep.
Jesus isn't saying like, hey, don't tithe part of your cumin and dill and whatever. He's like, but when you do it, you need to do it for the right reasons, not just to...
He's also saying take care of your parents, which that's a whole other...
He was pointing at the motivation behind...
I think John the Baptist, right? Repent and be baptized.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's like not even do anything differently. Repent is, change, it's change your direction in your life. But,
right.
But it's like, think about your life in different terms. So it's not like what Bella's asking isn't something little.
Yeah.
But it's also not drastic.
Yeah, it's not out of reach.
No.
What it reminds me most of is... hey, whoever wants to be first among you should be last.
Yeah. Gosh. All right, that's pretty easy. So I guess we all got that down. We should be. Oh wait, no, we don't.
Easy to understand, maybe not always so easy to do.
But I mean, I think this fits in that same thing. Easy to understand, not so easy to do. Shifting what you do, thinking about what you do is not just a means to your own ends, but as a means for the good of humanity.
Right. And so Keller is going to continue here. He says, and he's talking about folks that are trying to write about this stuff. Many find the emphasis of worldview-oriented writers and organizations to be too cognitive, with too little emphasis on inner heart change. And even those people cannot agree on what inner transformation and spiritual growth actually look like. So if you are a Christian who's trying to be faithful in your work, you might find yourself trying to weigh sentiments as varied as these. The way to serve God at work is to further social justice in the world. Or, the way to serve God at work is to be personally honest and evangelize your colleagues. Or, the way to serve God at work is just to do skillful, excellent work. The way to serve God at work is to create beauty. The way to serve God at work is to work from a Christian motivation to glorify God, seeking to engage and influence culture to that end. The way to serve God at work is to work with a grateful, joyful, gospel-changed heart through all the ups and downs. The way to serve God at work is to do whatever gives you the greatest joy and passion. The way to serve God at work is to make as much money as you can so that you can be as generous as you can. Our goal in this book is to feed your imagination and stir you to action with the richness of what the Christian faith says, directly and indirectly, about this inexhaustible subject. The Bible teems with wisdom, resources, and hope for anyone who is learning to work, looking for work, trying to work, or going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to look at those individual statements and just say, no, that's the one.
Yeah.
And then I've witnessed it because I've known people that are all, oh, man, the greatest way to serve God is to do whatever gives you the greatest joy and passion.
Right.
And then people get in a job like that. And then they're in the job 15 years, 20 years. And then something weird happens. They don't like that thing anymore. They like another thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't pay any money. And so they're in a real quandary because, I'm betraying God because I'm not giving me, this thing doesn't give me the greatest joy and passion, or somebody that really wants to, further social justice in the world. That's pretty popular here in New Mexico. Yeah. Ecological, social, all climate justice, all that stuff. And then you're an admin assistant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you affect approximately 0.01%. I mean, you can just print out less emails.
Right.
Unless your boss says to print them all out.
Yeah.
If you have a more Keller-esque style, you don't get stuck on just one of these things. If you just get stuck on one, there's a lot of jobs where you can't serve God if that's the only way to serve God at work.
Yeah. Creating beauty is a skill set that only a limited group of people
Because if you work at McDonald's
have. Yeah, beautiful hamburger.
I mean, yeah, there's only so many ways. I mean, maybe if you're good at making ice cream cones, but that's not even the majority of your job.
Yeah, so I think this just highlights kind of the richness of what Keller is going to talk about. And we're not going to try to go through everything that he says.
I thought you were just going to read it.
He's
like Jocko style.
Just read the whole book.
Yeah.
No, I think what our goal is today is just to discuss a few things that Tim Keller raised in his book and then point you to it. Maybe you have time to read or listen to that book online, or maybe you don't. But it is worth the time that you'll invest.
You can get AI to give you a summary.
That's where we're going. Tim Keller his work is honestly, it's either a home run or a bunt. He doesn't have much that's in the middle, and
he's not like a little Texas League RBI.
Yeah,
on base every time.
Yeah, and that's in my opinion, right? So walking with
you're saying your truth,
right? My truth. Walking with God through pain and suffering.
Expressed radical individualism.
Walking with God through pain and suffering. The reason for God, every good endeavor. Those are great books. His book on Mark,
Mid.
called it's a bunt. Like he's got
A bunt to the pitcher.
Right.
It's not even that good. Like, I didn't like Meaning of Marriage that much.
But when he's on his game,
Yeah.
he asks great questions.
Yeah.
And then he suggests interesting answers. And so that's what we're going to do today.
He is such a good question asker.
He's a great question asker. So one of the first questions he asked is, and one of the ones I thought was the most telling is, why is it dangerous to make work a form of self-realization?
Yeah, please explain that to some of us. I mean, for people in the audience, of course.
Well, it's the same thing as, it's the exact complement to Bella's quote at the beginning. Why is it dangerous for work to be the thing that makes us human? Why is it dangerous for it to be the thing that makes us important, for us to feel good about ourselves?
To form our identity in.
Yeah, so
why is, so what does he come up with?
Keller gives I think the question is as important as the answers, but at least one of the answers was interesting. He wrote, one of the reasons work is both fruitless and pointless is the inclination of the human heart to make work and its benefits the main basis of one's meaning and identity. When this happens, work is no longer a way to create and bring out the wonders of the created order, as Calvin would say, or to be an instrument of God's providence, serving the basic needs of our neighbor, as Luther would say. Instead, it becomes a way to distinguish myself from my neighbor, to show the world and prove to myself that I'm special. It is a way to accumulate power and security and to exercise control over my destiny. So often the observation of Ecclesiastes holds true. I saw that all labor and achievement spring from man's envy of his neighbor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. If you make any work the purpose of your life, even if that work is church ministry,
What?
you create an idol that rivals God. Your relationship with God is the most important foundation for your life, and it keeps all the other factors, work, friendships, family, leisure, pleasure, from becoming so important to you that they become addicting and distorted. Now, as a professional church person, is that true? Like your ministry can become an idol?
No. Wait. Yes. No. I plead the fifth. No. Absolutely, man. I think church work is almost the most prone to idolatry.
It's got such a intrinsic worth to it.
Oh, man. I mean, because it's so affirming externally.
Right.
My old boss, his name was Edwin, great guy. He always made a joke. He'd say, you know what? I get paid to be good. Everybody in the congregation just has to be good for nothing. And, my job has a morality clause in it.
Right.
And so I have to be at least kind of good. I get told I'm good all the time.
Yeah.
People's idea of me is like I'm up on a pedestal. Not everybody's, but some for sure.
Don't worry.
No, and it's not every. And I'm going to be honest, man. Our church is really good at that. I've been at other churches where the pastor is
semi-divine.
All the way.
Right.
Fourth member of the Trinity type thing.
Yeah.
Like he can do no wrong. He speaks ex cathedra. Even knowing some of those pastors that work at those places, they didn't even set it up. Like they walked into that.
Yeah.
Because, man, people would much rather have a visible savior than an invisible one. And so church work as an idol is so easy.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of do-good jobs are like that.
Yeah, sure.
Social work. And then you add on there, I tell people there's two kinds of work. There's passion jobs and there's all the rest of the jobs.
Right.
And one's not better than the other. Passion jobs are just jobs that you would do for free. We talked about that a long time ago on the podcast.
Right.
It's people do pastoral work for free. People test video games for free. People care for dogs for free, whatever it is. The problem with passion jobs is they don't pay very much. And then so you take a career and you do good and you take less pay, it creates some weird martyrdom syndrome. And so, like I'm saying, social work. Oh, I take care of children. It's like what Keller says. It distinguishes.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you guys do that occasionally. That's my job.
Right.
I'm a whole step above. And you know what? I don't even do it for the money.
Right.
Not because I wouldn't take it, but because it's just not there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a person that's done development work, is that common in your field?
It can be, especially internationally, where as an international, you tend to have this kind of elevated status, regardless of what you look like or what country you come from, just because you come from a place that is more developed.
Like you're there.
And you're there. You're different. You're strange. You normally have a standard of living that is higher than local folks. And so it's real easy, I think, to start wrapping your identity around being in charge or being special, being paid attention to, all those things. As you mentioned, when your work is helping people or doing good, yeah, you can start to take that in some weird directions. In fact, Keller's going to go on to say one of the other reasons why this is such a problem, to make work a form of self-realization or self-promotion or whatever you want to say, is that we all want to justify ourselves. We see that from Genesis 3 until Revelation, probably like 10 or 20 or something.
Probably around 19, I think.
Right.
Till the beast is defeated and cast into hell forever.
And he wrote this: if someone claims that your professional status is a result of grace, you immediately think they don't know how hard you worked to get into your school, how hard you worked in school and at your internships, how you performed better than your peers at work, and so on. However, you worked with talents you did not earn. They were given to you. You went through doors of opportunity you did not produce. They opened for you. Therefore, everything you have is a matter of grace. And so you have the freedom to serve the world through your influence just as you do through your competence. Paul is going to say the same thing in 1 Corinthians. What do you have that you did not receive? I think it's 1 Corinthians. That's why everybody can look at their job and figure out a way that it makes them special or different.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
So we see this a lot here in Albuquerque because we have so many knowledge workers who are doing very important things, who are very well educated, and they get a little butthurt.
Right.
If you talk about their jobs in terms of grace.
The fundamental human drive is to make tribes, right? Like you make it out of your family, you make it out of your country in some instances, or you make it out of your profession. That's just what we do.
And if you do a job like what we see around here for the national laboratories or even in any of these contracting, it's both my profession and the country because it's for national security.
Right. Sure.
Like it doesn't matter even what you're working on. You're working on the right fin of a plane or whatever.
Yeah.
It's for national security.
Sure. I think Keller's deeper point is every person wants to justify themselves, so they all come up with a story.
Yeah.
What Kelly Surratt calls a just so story. And sure, the just so story means whatever position you happen to be in, you would tell a story that made that position the special one. It's just like, this is how I got here. This is why this is important.
Yeah.
We all want to justify ourselves.
And it is true that it is important because how you got there is a testament to God's grace.
Right. That's exactly right. So justifying ourselves is the problem.
Oh.
It's
but God loves me and I'm special.
He does love you and you are special.
Oh, how do I square those two? Where do you see this, Josh, the most? Where people justify themselves?
I see it in everything that anybody does all the time.
Besides that, where's the most?
Where's the most? I've had the opportunity to live in places that are more community-oriented or more tribal, if you want to use those words. And I'm an outsider to that culture in that way. I don't exist within any tribe, but I'm also not competition. So I get to hear the origin story of these people and why they think that their group is better and how they've been affirmed and how they've been discriminated against. And everybody, the dominant ones, the non-dominant ones, the big ones, the little ones, the Christian ones, the Muslim ones, the Hindu ones, they've all got a story. Humans are storytelling machines, and their stories have many purposes, but the most common one is to justify themselves, to tell a story of why they're important in the universe, why they're special. And it takes a work of God constantly and consistently to continually tell a story about who you are and how you got to where you are and your group and your family and your work that doesn't highlight how hard that you've worked and how smart you've been and how talented you are. I mean, this is not humble versus not humble. It's just everybody sits where they sit. They see what they see. You are the star, and God made you that way. God made it so I only can see the world through my eyes. But he then commands us to try to look at the world in an empathetic way, in an understanding way, and then God opposes the proud and favors the humble, so that we remind others and ourselves that whatever blessings we received because they were a gift. Every good gift descends from above, I believe James says.
Yeah, I reminded in Blood and Thunder.
Right.
Like you talk about pure tribalism in the most real way. He talks about one of the world's fairs in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Right.
And he talks about these different native tribes, and there were like 2 from Canada and 5 from kind of this area of the world. And the origin story said basically 2 things. One, they were first, and they came from the South. That was the origin story.
Right.
Like, and they were not first. They were unique.
Right.
And came from the South. And they knew that they were unique because they had been down to the South, and they didn't speak any of the same kind of dialects.
Right.
And so that affirmed them. And they go up to this, I think it's maybe in Toronto or whatever. Like it was pretty far north. And they meet a tribe from way like Arctic Canada.
Right.
And they can understand each other.
Ooh.
Because their dialects are so close. And it totally throws off their two justifications of they're unique and they're from the South. Yeah. And the author said, people also got these 2 tribes confused because of how they looked.
Gosh.
And so the 2 tribes moved, like they moved their booths, and they never spoke to one another because both of them had kind of a similar story of justification of why they were who they were. And I think it really hurts you to admit that at first.
Yeah.
I mean,
why are you a Chiefs fan? Why? I mean, it's with sports clubs, it's with political parties in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like everybody's got a story all the time.
Yeah. Why am I a Cowboys fan? Why wouldn't you be?
I mean,
are you stupid or something?
I could think of about 30 reasons.
Listen, the 90s, we were the best.
So the best.
So, but like, and I can go, oh yeah, I was a Cowboys fan because where I grew up and all that stuff. But then I've heard people say, well, I worked so hard. It's like, yeah, you did work hard.
Yeah.
You can tell me. We went to El Salvador last week. I saw a guy that works 18 hours a day. Not really. He works 16 hours a day, hammering up tile. Like he's the demo guy.
Right.
and he is 51 years old, and he has a hammer and a chisel, and he hammers up tile. Not with a big... He does that 16 hours a day. He's like, oh, yeah, I got a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think you work harder than him? I think he makes $250 a month.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't work harder than him.
That's right. That is one of the positive things. If you have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, living overseas, you are able to see how blessed you are to have grown up healthy with medicine, to have jobs that are easier
The
physically.
government demanding you go to school.
Right. And providing school.
Yeah.
So that's something that's an interesting way to look at. And these are the kind of things that Keller is going to uncover for us.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a question to the audience, man. Where do you justify yourself?
Where do you justify yourself?
Where
The answer is
self-realize. Where do you?
everywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's a high level of thinking that you didn't just manifest or earn, sir.
Right. Yeah.
That was a gift also.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Yeah, think about it. Here's another question that Keller surfaces. Why should you do great work? Now, I got conflicting advice from my dad because he would say, on the one hand, boy, if you're going to be an eighth of an inch off, I don't have time for you, right? And on the other hand, he'd say, hey, we're not making a piano here, which meant it doesn't have to be perfect.
So you could be a 16th off?
Yeah. Well, it depended on the situation. Which advice you got was absolute perfection in measurement or, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, hurry up.
Hurry up. But there are strands of personalities that only deal in perfection with all the attendant limitations that brings. Like, it's got to be slow, it's got to be expensive, all those things. Then there's the just get her done crowd. Why? What Keller is surfacing here is quality is a choice. Why should Christians, or why should you, do work that is great? Not meaning perfect, but great.
And I'm going to even say, what is great work?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question.
Can I read this quote?
Sure.
After studying God's work of forming and filling the earth and looking back on it and saying it was good, James had an epiphany. With delight, he exclaimed, God doesn't make junk. I don't make junk. A biblical understanding of work energizes our desire to create value from the resources available to us. So God does great work.
That's true. And this guy, James, Redeemer Pres, which is where Keller was a pastor, started something that was called the Center for Faith and Work. And for a couple of years, they really worked hard to bring people together to kind of discuss these issues. Because, again, if it's important enough to spend a year or two writing a book on, you think it's pretty important. And so this guy, James, was making, I think he was making like artisanal jams.
Ooh.
But
like Smuckers?
Yeah, right. I assume it's maybe even as good or better.
I'm the wrong person to do anything artisanal or
Right.
artisanal.
Yeah, however that is.
Yeah, I just like food pretty good.
Yeah,
And pretty good food.
pretty good food. But I think his point is God doesn't make junk. Now, again, junk is just like great work.
The eye of the beholder.
The eye of the beholder is important there. And so there's a decision that auto manufacturers have made in the last 30 or 40 years, which decreases a car's ability to withstand a crash without taking damage in order to keep more people alive. You get in a 1968 Mustang and you hit a tree, your forehead will go through the dash.
Your forehead is the crumple zone.
Your forehead is the crumple zone. But the car will probably look fine.
You could probably straighten it back out with a, with the chain and the pulley and a come along.
Right, because it's all steel, it's heavy. New cars, they just break, but your forehead doesn't go through the dash.
Yeah.
That's
easy.
As easily. And then there's do you want to buy a razor blade that lasts for 50 years? Or is one that lasts for 3 uses? Is one junk? Depends on how much money you have. If you're at a space where a lot of the people that I've worked with are, and you're buying great groceries a day at a time because you get paid a day at a time, you're never going to be able to buy a razor that's good enough to last for 50 years. You need a 3-day razor, and you're willing to pay a little bit extra over time because that's what you've got.
I'm glad people make cheap stuff because I like buying cheap stuff sometimes, and it's good enough.
Yeah. But I think what it does, why it's an interesting question is because great and junk are both relative in some sense. And it reorients us towards God's standards because God, if we can learn anything from the fossil record, which we probably can, not everything that God created in the beginning survives until now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it was bad stuff or junky stuff.
As you know, I watch car repair videos much
Right.
more than I actually do car repair.
Uh-huh.
I like them. And one of the guys that I watch, he repairs 15 or 18-year-old Ferraris and stuff and Mercedes-Benz. And man, you couldn't pay me to try those are the least reliable cars.
Right.
And they're not even that much faster.
Yeah.
Then I've got an F-150 and man, it's reliable. It doesn't just break when I can fix it for hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars.
Right.
And with its turbocharged engine, it's about as fast as some of those 25-year-old cars that break all the time and cost thousands of dollars. But somebody will look at that Ferrari and go, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
Your F-150. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
mass-produced.
Mass-produced. It's not as artistic.
Yeah.
So it draws us back to, our culture teaches us that we're consumers as part of our identity, which is just as unhelpful as being workers as our identity. What we produce, what we create, is a reflection on God. And so we should be able to justify God or justify what we produce with reference to God. We should be able to say, if I produce thin plastic bags that are killing millions of sea turtles, I better, I think, if I'm going to be talking to God about it someday, be able to say, hey, these thin plastic bags, they have a
redeeming quality.
A redeeming quality besides being cheap.
Yeah.
Similarly, if I make stuff that's so expensive that no one except 5 people can buy it, I also better be able to have
like a Stradivarius.
Like a Stradivarius, which he's dead.
He's just fine right now or not?
Yeah. And so everything needs to be sourced in God. And we don't have to think about those things all the time because then we couldn't get anything done. But as we're looking at what we are going to spend our lives doing, whether that's raising children, being a plumber, having a service-oriented job, being in customer service, designing new products, using AI, whatever it is, thinking about it not in terms of only how much does it pay me, but also in terms of how does it serve creation, how does it serve people.
Yeah.
That's important. After all, we are ambassadors of God, and we're working ambassadors. So Keller says this: Paul counsels readers that when they become Christians, it is unnecessary to change what they are currently doing in life, their marital state, job, or social station, in order to live their lives before God in a way that pleases Him. In verse 17, Paul directs, only let each person lead the life that God, the Lord assigned to him and to which God has called him. This is my rule in all the churches. Here, Paul uses 2 religiously freighted words to describe ordinary work. Elsewhere, Paul has spoken of God calling people into a saving relationship with him and assigning them spiritual gifts to do ministry and build up the Christian community. That's Romans 12:3 and 2 Corinthians 10:13. Paul uses these same two words here when he says that every Christian should remain in the work that God has assigned to him and to which God has called him. Yet Paul is not referring in this case to church ministries, but to common social and economic tasks. Some people might call them secular jobs. And he's naming them God's calling and assignments. The implication is clear. Just as God equips Christians for building up the body of Christ, so also he equips all people with talents and gifts for various kinds of work for the purpose of building up the human community. We aren't to choose jobs and conduct our work to fulfill ourselves and accrue power. For being called by God to do something is empowering enough. We are to see work as a way of service to God and our neighbor. So we should both choose and conduct our work in accordance with that purpose. It's a good word. It's a good summary.
Yeah.
Do good work because we're representing God and because God is calling our work a calling, a vocation, a service, in the same way that we are called to serve the church.
Man,
which is kind of
Keller
crazy.
also listened to this podcast.
Amazing.
Possibly. Or something.
Or something. I agree.
Because he also agrees with our view on work.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, we still have time for 2 more questions. We may skip some of the quotes that we had planned. But here's the
I got a little talky, so it happens.
How can we change the culture of work for the better? And let's
be the change you want to see.
Be the change you want to see. And let's make that concrete for yourself. How can you change the culture of your workplace for the better? Now, of course, you work for a church, Aaron, so pretty much it's already perfect.
I actually had this conversation with a guy about, 6 months ago. He had taken over a church that was, it had some issues like churches do.
Right.
But he had been the pastor for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I told this guy, I was like, hey, man, at 5 years, all the problems you inherited are now just your problems.
Yeah.
They're not the other guy's problems. You're in charge. Whatever is happening, you've either allowed to happen, you've rewarded, you haven't discouraged,
Physician, heal thyself.
Yeah, all these problems are your problems.
Right.
And so, man, in pastoral work, dude, it's we blame everybody but ourselves. I was talking with a pastor the other day, and he's like, oh, let me tell you, the people are this, and the culture is this. And I never heard and here's what I'm doing about it. My guess is Keller's going to talk about how we change our work culture, even in the church, for the better.
He gives obviously a lot of his book is kind of around this, trying to answer this kind of question, because that's part of the kingdom of God becoming more present on earth is us living in ways that impact our culture. There's been such a strain over the years, and Christians tend to go in either one of 2 directions. We either want to dominate the culture or we want to run away from the culture. Very rarely do we do a good job for a long time of being in the world but not of it. To be fair, that's hard. It's real easy to dominate the world, to say, this is the Holy Roman Empire, and you will go to church on Sunday. Yeah.
Super easy to dominate the world, except, someone convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
Sure. Yeah. No, but you don't care. You don't have to care if they believe it or not. You just have to care if they do it. That's where it runs to, right? Orthopraxy, not orthodoxy. And then the other one so prioritizes everybody believing exactly the same stuff that they just drop a fortress around themselves and run away from the culture and create their own kinds of music and art and whatever so that they won't be polluted.
A good friend of ours calls that shelter-in-place Christianity.
Yeah. I've always said it's really hard to be an ambassador to China without leaving the United States. Right?
But what if you pray for them?
Sure. We're supposed to be ambassadors of the kingdom. That requires us to engage with the culture. And Keller talks about that. He highlights a few things. I'll just summarize here. The most important is probably that the gospel provides us this alternate story for work. It's not just about me and mine and getting what I have to get out of life. It's about serving people and loving your neighbor and loving God.
You want me to read it?
That's
All right.
fine.
First, the gospel provides an alternative storyline for our work. This is vital because all work is propelled by a worldview or a narrative account of what human life is all about and what will help us thrive. Second, the Christian faith gives us a new and rich conception of work as partnering with God in his love and care for the world. This biblical conception helps us appreciate all work, from the most simple to the most complex, by both believers and non-believers. So Christians who grasp a biblical theology of work learn not only to value and participate in the work of all people, but also to see ways to work distinctively as Christians. Third, the gospel gives us a particularly sensitive new moral compass through a host of sound ethical guidelines to help us make decisions, as well as wise counsel about human hearts. Finally, the gospel radically changes our motives for work and fills us with new and durable inner power that will be with us through thick and thin.
If we were to unpack that paragraph,
One
that
more
would be
episode of podcasting.
that's a whole nother book, man. That is the sum total of the book in a lot of ways. Like, the gospel has so much to say about life and work. What he said here is the gospel is what teaches us to stand against people who are seeking power, against people who are corrupt, against people who are just in it for themselves. It teaches us that we can't trust people without being wise about it. It teaches us that we can't trust ourselves. I mean, there's so much in the scripture. There's so much in the Word of God about work and world that it's amazing to me that we don't explore it more in our time together as believers. When you think about how the world looks at its own story, Keller references Leslie Stevenson's classic book, The 7 Theories of Human Nature. And he writes this: Plato saw our main problem as being the physical body and its weakness. For Marx, it was unjust economic systems. For Freud, it was inner unconscious conflicts between desire and conscious. For Sartre, it was not realizing that we are completely free since there are no objective values. For Skinner, it was not realizing we are completely determined by our environment. For Lorenz, it was our innate aggression because of our evolutionary past. Each of these theories is really a story of what is wrong with us and what we can do about it. The gospel tells a different story. And here Keller quotes a philosopher, Al Wolters, who wrote this: the great danger is to always single out some aspect of God's good creation and identify it rather than the alien intrusion of sin as the villain. Such an error conceives of the good-evil dichotomy as intrinsic to the creation itself. Something in the good creation is identified as the source of evil. In the course of history, this something has been variously identified as the body and its desires, which is, again, Plato, as the culture and distinction from nature, which is Rousseau and Romanticism, as authority figures in society and family, which is psychology, as economic forces, which is Marx, as technology and management, Heidegger and the existentialists. As far as I can tell, the Bible is unique in its rejection of all attempts to either demonize some part of creation as the root of our problems or to idolize some part of creation as the solution. All of the religions, philosophies, and worldviews in one way or another fall into the trap of idolatry, of failing to keep creation and fall distinct. And this trap is an ever-present danger for Christians as well.
The real problem with life is that we have to work or the real problem, the real solution to life is just to work. I mean, that's, you see that, we see those two attitudes very common.
Again, that's human nature. We're trying to justify ourselves. We're trying to make sense of the world. If I just said the root and the fruit of Keller's book is God has to be at the center of everything. The gospel has to be at the center of everything. That includes work. It includes life. It includes community. And where that isn't true, I mean, it goes back to that very, very first quote. If God isn't the center, then everything else gets distorted, even if it's a good thing. And so the gospel story says something that is different. It doesn't say, hey, economic forces are what's evil or leaders are what's evil. It says the human heart is what's evil, and there is a way that heart can be redeemed. And there's a way that redeemed people should be living that bear witness in their families, in their cultures, in their jobs to what the kingdom should look like. Let's finish here. While from the outside there might not be an immediately noticeable difference between a well-run company reflecting a gospel worldview and one reflecting primarily the world story of the marketplace. I want you to just hear that again. While from the outside there might not be immediately noticeable differences between a well-run company reflecting a gospel worldview and one reflecting primarily the world story of the marketplace. Inside, the differences could be very noticeable. The gospel-centered business would have a discernible vision for serving the customer in some unique way. It would have a lack of adversarial relationships and exploitation, a strong emphasis on excellence and product quality, an ethical environment that goes all the way down to the bottom of the organizational chart and to the realities of daily behavior, even when high ethics mean a loss of profit. In the business animated by the gospel worldview, profit is simply one of many important bottom lines. I've been really fortunate in the places that I've worked, but I've also worked with and employed other contractors. And so I've got to see inside of businesses, both gospel-centered and not. And it's true, a good business is a good business in a lot of ways. But it's also true that you can feel the difference in a group of people that is formed by the gospel and the way they relate to each other and the way they relate to their work and the way they relate to their world and their motivations and their goals and all the things.
You know, when Josh gives you a book report, it's a pretty good recommendation.
It's true.
So a decade ago, Tim Keller, man, he wrote this book, Every Good Endeavor, 2016, connecting your work with God's work. It's worth reading, listening to, and we hope our discussion has enriched your day. But more than that, we hope it's enriched your view of work.
We talked a lot about some misconceptions about work. You know, whether that's its purpose, its goal, its function. Take a moment and think about what things you already agreed with. That's great. Take another moment and write down the point made here that was the hardest for you to hear. Maybe you didn't like hearing that you're a self-justifier. Or maybe you didn't like...
Maybe you're already making excuses for that.
Yeah.
You're justifying it.
Or maybe you're one of those folks who has a hard time hearing that God made you and you are a good creation. Maybe that's not been your experience in life.
Learning to follow Jesus at work requires real face-to-face community. And it requires relationships. And we hope you find that wherever you are. If you're in Albuquerque, we would love to have you join us at Grace Church or at Mesa Valley in the South Valley.
Thanks for joining us today. We are nearing the end of Season 1 of the Gospel Works podcast.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. This is episode 22. We'll go to 24. Season 2, we'll be talking about work still, obviously, but with a more intentional focus on the church and culture.
We have some pretty cool guests lined up.
But there's going to be a gap where we dig into this new material to make sure that it's worth listening to.
And you need a break from us, let's be honest.
You probably need it. However, if you have comments or questions or ideas for a topic that will definitely
If you
not
want to be on the show,
if you want to be on the show, I don't know who wouldn't.
I mean, yeah. I feel like both listeners have already been on the show.
Yeah. Pretty much, it's all uphill from here.
It is.
Anyway, if you want to talk to us, reach out to us at our email address, thegospelworkspodcast@gracechurchabq.org.
Well, until then, for Josh, my name is Aaron, and this is the Gospel Works Podcast.